Wiffle ball fans, I'm FLT Vice Commissioner Tanner Peterson here, joined alongside FLT Commissioner Kyler Stork and FLTV host Kelly Collins.
That's right, Tanner. Today we're talking all about the 2019 season, so let's get right into it. In 8th place, we have the Guards, who were 0-3 this season, and they were 0-6 in their FLT career overall.
Going off that with the 0-6 record career, Cole Hamill did a lot in free agency this year. He brought back Bo and dropped Nick to eventually try and get them to win a game, and he signed rookie Ben Hansen, which hit 500 in the tournament and did all he could, but they eventually fell out and went 0-6 and did not be successful at all.
That's right, Kyler. I'd say Ben Hansen was a leader for the Guards. He led the league in batting average with 500, although that was only through 3 games. Still with a .650 on base percentage. He was a reliable guy at the plate. Drew a lot of walks, 6 walks in 3 games, which is respectable. And he put in work for the Guards on the mound. He was their leading pitcher, it looks like here. He had a 12.94 ERA. Not the best in the FLT, but for a team like the Guards, he was a very key addition and almost helped them get a win this year, but unfortunately they couldn't.
Yeah, and then that brings us to 7th place, which is the Saints, who were also 0-3 this season, and it was only their first year in the FLT, which is outstanding.
Yeah, going off that, Nick Barnes was the captain of the Saints, and he actually got dropped by the Guards, so I thought that would make it a little interesting because of the rivalry between Cole and Nick, but we never really got to see Cole and Nick go head-to-head, but they did give it their best shot. They did go 0-3, but they put a 16-6. They had a 16-6 lead on the American Mambas, which is my team, and they definitely were holding my own, but we came back to beat them 17-6.
Yeah, and it was just a down year for the Saints. That rivalry game would have been great to see. The Saints, of course, a lot of teams, they just couldn't get it done on the mound, giving up too many runs. Looks like they gave up 44 runs, which almost tops the league. But they only played 3 games, so I mean, giving up 44 runs in 3 games does not do you good. Looking at the stats here, their pitching, I mean, it doesn't even look like they had an ace out there. I don't know who their pitcher even was. Bringing in Justin and Ryan, though, I mean, I had trouble telling them apart in the booth, but, you know, they just swapped places on first base, taking walks, and, I mean, that got it done for them, put some runs on the board, but just wasn't enough out there.
Yeah, and that brings us to 6th place, which was the Legacy, and they were 2-3 this season. And they were the 2018 defending champs, so that's pretty impressive as well.
Yeah, speaking on the championship part, I mean, it could, in the eyes of Jimmy, it probably was a letdown year. They still made things interesting in pool play, taking the 1 seed, but they just had a letdown when it got to the FLT playoffs. I think Maggie had a great rookie season with the amount of walks. I think she set the record for most walks in the game. But they just couldn't really get it consistently done on the mound. Jimmy was bringing the heat, but it wasn't always a strike. But I think if he ever figures that strike's going out 100%, they could be right back up there in contention for a title. But unfortunately this year, things just didn't go their way, and sometimes that happens in the FLT.
First team out of the playoffs, it's always tough to be the first team out, and being the defending champs, they needed to prove themselves better than that. Unfortunately, they couldn't. Kyler talked about Maggie a little. She didn't put the ball in play a lot, batting .091 at the plate, which isn't that impressive. But if you look at her on-base percentage, .665, she was an on-base machine. I can respect that she didn't swing the bat. It's a great strategy. And she got on base, and she really helped the Legacy out there. And the walks were the Legacy's key to success, but it was also their downfall, as Jimmy Peterson just couldn't find the zone. His last name's Peterson, so you know he's got that wiffle ball in his blood. But just he walked 44 people, got it done at the plate, but the pitching for the Legacy just wasn't there. The loss of Dawson really hurt them. But we're hoping to see them bounce back in the future here as Jimmy Peterson is trying to make some moves, so we'll see what happens.
Right, and not that far ahead, in 5th place is the Lakehawks, also 2-3 this season, and they were the 3rd seed after pool play this season.
Yeah, going out to Lakehawks, I think everyone in the FLT loves the Lakehawks. I don't think anyone hates them. I mean, it goes off their captain with that being Matt Ogden. Everybody loves Augie, everybody loves Daniel, and everybody loves Caden. And it really didn't make sense to me how they got the 3 seed. As you line them up on paper, they arguably could be going for a 1 seed, because 2 out of their 3 players are in the top 50% of batting average, which usually gets you a 1 seed in pool play. But what really hurts them every single year is their pitching. Matt and Daniel and Caden all look promising some innings, and some innings they look like Helen Keller on the mound. So, I mean, you really don't know. But all around a respectable franchise, and I think they'll be back this year and in 2020 trying to be something to prove out there.
Yeah, as you said, one-way team. They just got it done at the plate. Matt Ogden, he tied Ben Hansen for first place in batting average with 500, although Matt led the league in on-base percentage, taking that draw-walk strategies day one with the small strike zone. Got on base 76% of the times he came up to the plate, which is just remarkable. But again, the mound couldn't get it done. It just doesn't look like they had an ace. Caden Stork helped them win when they were Team 3 back in year 1 of the FLT, but the pitching just hasn't been there since. And, you know, everyone loves them. FLT rivalry poll, no one picked them as their biggest rival. I mean, Matt Ogden, he just leads a class act of a team out there. He makes sure they're out there, makes sure they're respecting people, good sportsmanship, and, you know, everyone loves Matt, and of course everyone loves Big D. And, you know, everyone even loves Caden, you know. He's a funny guy out there, and he tries his hardest, and we can really respect it, but this year just wasn't their year.
Yeah, and that brings us to 4th place, which was the DeClaw, with 3-3 this season, and they were the best rookie franchise overall.
Going off the best rookie franchise, I think the DeClaw compared to the champions, I mean, they could arguably be having the best year. For a franchise that was not officially set until 3 a.m. the night before the tournament, which if you pay attention to the videos, the game started at 6 a.m. Isaiah and Nick will get this, but we made the jerseys at Denny's at 3 in the morning before the tournament. So nothing was really set until that night, and they went out and played because they had the morning shift, so they went out and played 3 hours later. So I think if you go off that and they make the FLT Final Four in their first year, it's definitely a successful year for them. I don't think any one of them would hold a grudge or hang their head on their performance. I think Nick was a big shock. We all knew he was good, but we definitely didn't know he had that arm in him to go as deep in the playoffs. He knocked out the defending champs with his arm. He contested in pool play, and he almost beat the Apes too. So all around, I think a franchise with the Claw will go far in the FLT in the future because of what they built here, and I'm excited to see what they do in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the standings, the Claw, they went 3-3, but they were by no means a 500 team. Nick Everett, they didn't really have a pitcher at first, as that's kind of key in the FLT. They threw Isaiah and Nolan out there, who stood their own out there. They got some strikeouts, but once Nick came to the mound, it was clear that they had their ace. Looking at ERA, he was the 3rd best pitcher in the FLT behind Mark Ogden and Patrick Lipka, which is impressive to be even in the same sentence as those two pitchers. But just the way he did it at the plate and on the mound, he is a key piece in the FLT, and I can see him winning MVP in the near future. As he took home Rookie of the Year, he was the best of the rookies this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to be best of everyone next year.
And going off that, Tanner, with Nick, I think Isaiah is the guy that doesn't get talked about enough. I think if the FLT had a most improved player, Isaiah would definitely be the front runner of that from his the lefties back in 2016. I believe Isaiah taking the lefties and making DeClaw, changing the name, I think he definitely earned some respect from a lot of heads this year, and I look forward to him being a general manager of that franchise in years to come.
Yeah, and I'd say he was by far the most underrated in the 2019 tournament. He had, let me see here, he had a .714 on-base percentage. He drew walks, and he was just kind of a silent player. No one really worried about him, but he would bite them, and people wouldn't even know it.
100% agree.
Yeah, and that brings us actually to 3rd place, which was the Diesels, and they were 5-2 this season, and they were 3-0 in pool play.
Yeah, going off the Diesels, I think everyone knows if Patrick Lipka is on the mound, the Diesels have a chance to win the FLT championship every year. It's just if their bats show up, because all they need is one home run with Patrick Lipka on the mound. But I think the key centerpieces here, as they signed Garrett Murray in free agency during last season, I think they all, every head turned a little bit, saying their chances went up, obviously, when they signed him because of how good Garrett was at the plate. I think they could have easily won it this year, but it just, I mean, in the winners bracket, they lost in the 9-inning classic to the Apes. So it's definitely a franchise moving forward that will be interesting to watch, and I think they have definitely the skill and talent to win it every single year with Patrick Lipka on the mound.
Yeah, and you know they say if you want to play in Texas, you got to have a fiddle in the band. But if you want to win in the FLT, you got to have an ace on the mound. And Patrick Lipka, along with a couple other guys, are just guys who, if they're on their best, their team is going to win the FLT championship. Unfortunately, this year, Lipka, I mean, he pitched 21 innings. I mean, that's tough to pitch 21 straight innings and not have a break. In the end, his arm kind of gave up, but he was out there competing for the Diesels, and I mean, he gave his body for the Diesels and hurt him in the end. He was hurting for weeks with that arm, as most FLT pitchers are, but he just, just the wheels fell off the bus at the end there. Can't blame him. His team rallied behind him, tried to put some runs up on the board, but just fell short. But what you said about Garrett Murray, I mean, I did not expect him to be that good. No offense, Garrett. But he led the league in home runs, second in RBIs. As we know, Adam and Lipka are not the best hitters. And, yeah. And just getting that hitting was key. And I think that moving forward, if Garrett and the Diesels stick together, I think that's with Lipka on the mound, Garrett at the plate, and Adam with that impeccable sportsmanship, they are a three-way team, and they're going to be unstoppable.
Yeah, which brings us to our final two teams. And the team that snagged the second spot was the American Mambas with a 5-3 record this season, and they were in their third championship game.
Knowing a little bit more about that team, because I play for them, obviously, I thought it was a good year all around. I know you never can be disappointed when you make the FLT finals, but it's always disappointing when you lose. So we ran into the best pitcher in the league, and you can't really do anything about that. But I think Brett Lenz, I mean, he's a class act guy. We've always been together. He hit 275, had 5 home runs and 16 RBIs. You put that on paper, that's a great year for a ball player. I mean, no one really gives him that much respect, and I think he deserves a ton more, kind of like Isaiah Timar on the claw. And Alex Haas, I think that was our only problem this year. He's a great ball player, but I think he would say so for himself that the year before compared to this year, his pitching was just a little bit off, and I think that's all that we really missed this year was his pitching, that he could come in after me and keep the train rolling, because once my arm was shot, it was kind of just over from there. But, I mean, all around, I think it was a successful year. I mean, obviously we won the championship, but we couldn't get it. But we all had fun, and it was a great run, and we had a lot of fun that day. So I think it was a great time overall.
Yeah, I mean, Mamba's third championship game, third loss. They just can't get over that hump. Coming in this year, I thought the Mambas were the front runner, especially with Alex Haas's performance in 2018. I thought he was going to pitch the lights out, but, I mean, as Kyler said, I think he regressed. He wasn't as good. He wasn't hitting the strike zone. That was his problem. Facing him, his pitches are impossible to hit. But if he can't hit the zone, it's hard to not get on base when he's not hitting the zone. I think the change to the strike zone really affected him, as his pitches kind of come across in a way that they don't go in the fixed strike zone. So that really hurt them. And as Kyler said, Brett Lenz, I know I already gave this award, but another one of the most underrated FLT players. I mean, he's a force to be reckoned with in the field. He's a speed demon on the bases. And, a lot of teams focus all their attention on Kyler and Alex, and they don't really pitch or try hard against Brett. And just like Isaiah, he comes back and bites them. And as he had a walk-off early in pool play, he was the hero that no one expected him to be. And he's really proved himself as a Mamba staple and one of the top players in the FLT.
And going off that, Tanner, with kind of under the radar, the walk-off. He actually did have a walk-off versus the Diesels in the tournament before where no one expected it. If you would have told me that Brett hit a walk-off home run, I know he can hit home runs, but I would have been really happy that you told me that, as he shocked the world in 2018 when he hit the playoff home run to beat the Diesels when we were down 3-0 and hit 3 home runs in a row to make the game 4-3. So that's just kind of a little bit about Brett, how he can come back to bite anybody, and he's definitely earned the respect of many FLT heads after this year fully, I believe.
And this brings us to our 2019 first place FLT champions, the Apes, who went 5-2 this season, and this was their third championship overall.
Yeah, Kelly, going off that, I know as long as Mark Ogden is in the FLT, it's going to not be a cakewalk to the championship. The man is very respectable, along with his teammate Tanner Peterson, which I think he doesn't get the respect he deserves. Looking at them this year more in depth, they had a 714 win percentage, scoring 33 runs, and only giving up 19 runs, which is definitely a good ratio. But when you look at the Mambas, who scored 51 runs, you would think, oh, how did they not win? But as we all know in the FLT, all you need is a good pitcher. So definitely respectable stat line. I mean, Mark Ogden almost pitched 21 innings, and he faced around like 50-some batters. But the dude only gave up 2 hits, which is by far the best stat line I've ever seen in the FLT. Like, that's like Clayton Kershaw type stuff in the MLB. I think Mark is the greatest asset to the Fox Lake tournament, and I'm grateful that he's in the tournament. But sometimes when you face him, it sucks. He's taken some ships away from me, but it's fun to watch him when you go back and watch the videos and see the talent he has, not only on the mound. I mean, he's a great hitter too, but I think Tanner doesn't get the respect, and he had a great on-base percentage this year. Draws a lot of walks, and he can put the ball in play too, and he can hit some home runs. If you leave him one hanging, he'll put that ball in right field over the fence. So I think the Apes are the best franchise the FLT's ever seen, and they'll be the best franchise for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, being a part of the Apes, I know me and Mark, only 2-man team in the FLT, other than the Legacy, apologies. I mean, we're just, 1-2 punch. It's kind of nice being a smaller team. You get to go to the plate more, but especially having Mark on your team. We have less fielders. That doesn't really matter because Mark never lets him put the ball in play. In the championship, I never touched the ball. The only ball in play was right back at Mark. And, I mean, just looking at the stat line, as Kyler said, I'm not sure my math is right, but it seems like he faced around 82 batters and giving up 2 hits and striking out 53. That is just, like, impossible numbers. That's video game numbers right there. And, I mean, he gets it done for us at the plate. I hate to say I get carried, but, I mean, honestly, I do. He leads the league with 20 hits, and, I mean, pretty much all our runs came through Mark. I mean, it's a 2-man team, so they got to come through both of us. But he was just a two-way player, and it really helps me because people overlook me. And, as Kyler, I know in the championship, he was gassed, and he could really only pitch hard to Mark, and he couldn't really try that hard against me, so it let me get some cheap hits in the outfield, poke a few in the gaps. Mama's got great fielding, but still, I mean, just having an asset like Mark on the team really helps you pad your stats, and it really don't have to do much out there. So being on the Apes, it's a blessing, and it's just Mark. I mean, can't have much better than Mark Ogden in the FLT.
Well, that wraps up the 2019 season, but Kyler Stork, you have some announcements about the upcoming season.
I do. Before we get into the 2020 FLT with the offseason, I would just like to take a few moments to recognize some milestones that the players crossed this season. Mark and Patrick both went well over 100 Ks career for the pitching stats, so congrats to you both on reaching that milestone. It's a feat that only 2 players have ever reached out of all the 30-some players that have played in the tournament. Garrett hit his 10th career home run and surpassed that. I think Adam Willie had his 10th career hit, so that's good. Matt went over, I think, 50 career RBI, so that's great for him too. And not to single out myself, but I hit my 120th RBI in the loser bracket championship. So I think all around players were reaching milestones and having fun. And I think the 2019 Fox Lake Wiffle Ball Tournament was the best all around. When you line up competitiveness and fun, I believe it was the best we've ever had with those 2 joint mixtures mixed together. But as Kelly said, going into the off season, there's definitely some things that are going to be shaken up. So you FLT viewers will have to keep viewing because some players might be hanging up the cleats, some players might be switching up, some players might be staying home. We just don't know. There might be new teams, but keep watching and we'll have to see what happens.
Well, that is all we have for FLTV tonight. I'm Kelly Collins alongside Commissioner Kyler Stork and Vice Commissioner Tanner Peterson signing off.
We'll see you in the next one.